Imagine a world torn apart by centuries of relentless warfare where rival states battled for supremacy. In this age of chaos, one man rose to power, a figure whose ambition would forge an empire and forever change the course of Chinese history. His name was Yingzheng, but history would remember him as Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of Qin. Before his rise, China was a fractured land, a mosaic of warring states locked in a brutal struggle for survival. This was the Warring States period, a time of brilliant generals, cunning strategists, and endless bloodshed. The 7 major states, Qin, Xia, Ku, Qi, Yan, Han, Cao, and Wei vied for control, each with its own culture, its own army, and its own ambitions. The state of Qin, located in the west, was known for its ruthless military efficiency and its legalist philosophy, which prioritized strict laws and state control above all else. For over 250 years, alliances were made and broken, cities were besieged, and millions perished. The air was thick with the dust of marching armies and the smoke of burning cities. It seemed as though the cycle of violence would never end. But from the heart of this turmoil, the state of Qin was steadily growing stronger, perfecting its war machine and waiting for the right moment to strike. That moment came with Yingzheng's ascension to the throne of Qin, a man of unparalleled vision and unyielding will. He launched a series of brilliant military campaigns that would sweep across the land from 230 to 221 BC in just under a decade. The Qin armies conquered one state after another. Han, the weakest, fell first. Then Zhao, with its formidable military, was brought to its knees. One by one, the remaining states collapsed under the unstoppable Qin advance. In 220 BC, the last rival state, Qi, surrendered without a fight. The wars were over. Yingzheng, now master of all under heaven, declared himself Qin Shi Huang. He wasn't just a king, he was the first sovereign emperor, a title that elevated him to a near-divine status. This wasn't just a change in leadership, it was the birth of a unified Chinese empire. He established a new capital at Xianyang and set about creating a centralized government, dismantling the old feudal system where local lords held power. He divided the empire into 36 commanderies, each governed by officials he appointed directly. Power, for the first time, flowed from a single center, from one man. With the empire unified, Qin Shi Huang embarked on an ambitious program of standardization to knit his vast territory together. He understood that military conquest was only the first step. True unity required a common culture and infrastructure. One of his most significant reforms was standardizing the writing system. Before, each state had its own script, creating a barrier to communication. The emperor enforced a single, unified script, ensuring that his orders could be read and understood from one end of the empire to the other. He also standardized currency, replacing the myriad of different coins with a single round coin with a square hole in the center. Weights and measures were also standardized, facilitating trade and taxation. And then there were the great construction projects. He commissioned a vast network of roads, allowing his armies and officials to move quickly across the empire, and most famously, he ordered the connection of existing defensive walls to create a massive barrier against northern nomadic tribes. This monumental project, built by hundreds of thousands of laborers, was the precursor to what we know today as the Great Wall of China. But the emperor's rule was as brutal as it was effective. His legalist philosophy demanded absolute obedience and tolerated no dissent. Intellectual freedom was seen as a threat to his authority. In 213 BC, in a move that would make him infamous, he ordered the burning of the books, all historical records except those of Qin, and philosophical texts from rival schools of thought, especially Confucianism, were to be destroyed. Scholars who resisted were executed. This act was designed to erase the past and ensure that his ideology was the only one. His reign was one of terror and forced labor. The immense construction projects, while impressive, came at a tremendous human cost. Resentment simmered beneath the surface, and when Qin Shi Huang died in 210 BC, the empire he had built with an iron fist began to crumble. His death triggered a power struggle, and widespread rebellions erupted across the land, led by people exhausted by the harsh laws and heavy taxes. The mighty Qin dynasty, designed to last for 10,000 generations, collapsed in just 15 years. Out of the chaos of the Qin's fall, a new leader emerged. Unlike the aristocratic conquerors of the past, Liu Bang was a man of humble origins, a peasant who became a rebel leader. Through skill, charisma, and a bit of luck, he outmaneuvered his rivals, including the powerful warlord Xiang Yu, and established a new dynasty, the Han. In 202 BC, Liu Bang became Emperor Gaozu. He learned from the mistakes of the Qin. He understood that brute force alone could not sustain an empire. While he kept the centralized administrative structure of the Qin, he softened its harshest laws and reduced taxes, winning the support of the people. He created a system that was a blend of centralized control and a degree of regional autonomy, rewarding his key followers with land. This new political vision laid the foundation for a dynasty that would last for over 400 years, a golden age in Chinese history. The Han Dynasty refined the art of governance, moving away from the harsh legalism of the Qin and embracing a different philosophy, Confucianism. While the first Han emperors were wary of it, Emperor Wu, who reigned in the 2nd century BC, made Confucianism the official state ideology. This had a profound impact. Confucianism emphasized morality, social harmony, and respect for authority. Crucially, it promoted the idea that rulers should be virtuous and that government officials should be chosen for their merit and education, not just their birth. This led to the creation of a sophisticated bureaucracy staffed by educateds to find the most talented individuals. The Han established an imperial university and the beginnings of a civil service examination system, a revolutionary concept that would shape Chinese government for the next 2 millennia. This system created a government that was more stable, effective, and responsive to the needs of the empire. With a stable government and a flourishing economy, the Han Dynasty began to look outward. Under the ambitious Emperor Wu, the empire expanded its territory in all directions. But perhaps the most significant development of this era was the opening of the Silk Road. This was not a single road, but a network of trade routes that stretched from the Han capital of Chang'an all the way to the Mediterranean. For the first time, China was connected to Central Asia, India, and even the Roman Empire. Silk, a closely guarded Chinese secret, was the most prized commodity. But the routes also carried spices, glassware, and precious metals. More than just goods traveled along these paths. Ideas, technologies, religions, and cultures were exchanged, forever linking the East and the West. The Silk Road transformed the Han Dynasty into a cosmopolitan empire and a major player on the world stage. Despite its incredible achievements, the Han Dynasty, like all empires, eventually faced a crisis. Towards the end of the dynasty, a series of weak emperors, court corruption, and growing power of wealthy landowners led to widespread social unrest. Peasant rebellions, like the massive Yellow Turban Rebellion in 184 AD, shook the empire to its core. Warlords rose up, carving out their own territories and plunging China back into a period of fragmentation and civil war. By 220 AD, The last Han emperor was forced to abdicate, and the great empire formally came to an end. Yet its legacy was indestructible. The Han Daise had defined what it meant to be Chinese. The ethnic majority of China to this day call themselves the Han people, and the Chinese script is known as Han characters. So, what can we take away from this epic story of two dynasties? The Qin and the Han together laid the very foundations of imperial China.